talking about teaching TPSR to pre-service physical education teachers. And I was first asked to take this on when I became an assistant professor about 11 years ago. And before that time, I've conducted workshops, guest lectures. I had extensive experience teaching kids using TPSR. I've done research, but never like a 15-week course throughout a semester working with undergraduate students. And I realized, as I was trying to prepare for that, that Don Helson had never done such a task. He's not taken it on himself. So my first few experiences as a new professor, they didn't go very well. I remember walking away thinking, those PE majors are kind of annoying. They're kind of annoying. You know, I'm not sure if I like them very much. And kind of what happened with that is it sent me back to the drawing board. It's like maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm not doing some things right. And what I realized they were struggling with a different lesson plan format, kind of stuff Barry just alluded to. They were struggling with the primary goals in the affective domain and kind of the more advanced ideas of TPSR, like implementing goal-setting time into the physical activity, having students become leaders and run activities. Like, well, how can I have a leader running something when I should be the teacher in charge? The idea of transfer. What's transfer about? Talking about goals in your program and how it impacts other areas. And it was just too much for them. And I didn't do a good job organizing that. So I came up with this idea of 3 TPSR developmental stages. And they progress from a very teacher-directed approach and they move on to more of an empowerment base in a slow, progressive way that would hopefully make sense to them. And I don't have the time to get into the details, all the details of my class, but right now, it's spring semester in the States, in San Francisco, we're going to cover volleyball and basketball. My students will teach 6 30-minute lessons in the semester. They're also participating others that are doing TPSR lessons. So in this semester, they will see 48 lessons, 48 awareness talks, 48 lessons with the TPSR goals integrated, 48 group meetings and 48 reflections. That's a lot. And by the end, they should have, if they don't have a good idea of what's going on, something's wrong. And actually, I really have a good time with this class now. So I'm going to kind of overview sort of how this progresses. And I'm going to do it in the daily format that Barry had gone over. I don't talk about relational time because that is sort of similar from stage to stage. Just as we know about this approach, it just becomes more intense and more deep the more you get to know kids and have that connection with them. So in an awareness talk, developmental stage 1, when teachers are assigned to teach, they need to talk about respect, self-control, positive attitude, effort, teamwork, the first 2 responsibilities. And I put these percentages up there, 100% of the time. They need to, in 1-2 minutes max, describe these responsibilities, field a few questions, have a little discussion about what this means and what it looks like in the activity. After that, they get right to the lesson. Of that 30 minutes, about 20 to 24 minutes should be in physical activity. Good pedagogy, right? So in their lesson, I say integrating levels 1 and 2 into the physical activity 100% of the time. They're assigned a teaching skill. So in the developmental stage 1, just like most good pedagogy, they need to have drills and cues, demonstrations, modified games, general, specific feedback, extensions, all that good pedagogy stuff. Am I missing anything, Sarah? Is that good? Okay. If you look at this in a snapshot, this does not look too differently than a regular class using most curricular models. And this kind of eases them into TPSR, but they need these criteria to make that a successful developmental stage 1 lesson. 25 minutes into the lesson, they need to get to the group meeting, as Barry alluded to. Group meeting is about group empowerment. And when we do the first group meeting, I stop class and I'll say, in your class, when you were a kid, when you were in high school, elementary school, and you were in PE, have you ever been asked your opinion about your teacher's lessons? Have they ever asked you, what did you think about what I just taught you? It's a resounding no, always. So in this approach is the first time of doing a little bit of empowerment where they get to ask questions. I have these simple rules. Have your students talk, their peers, followed by the teacher talks. Student talk and the teacher talks about his or her perceptions. And this is their time to give their peers feedback. What did you like about the lesson? What went well, what didn't? And they can analyze what had happened. And also teacher will address how he or she thought it had gone, in addition to hitting on how the class had done with the first 2 responsibilities of respect and effort. That discussion could be about 2-3 minutes, and then that final part of reflection time. I think a reflection time is self-empowerment. Group empowerment is group meeting. Reflection time is how they individually evaluate themselves based on their responsibilities. And I use Don Hellison's thumb approach that he has in his book. Students ask each other, how respectful are you to others, right? Maybe so-and-so needs some work. How hard did you try or work as a team? Those first two responsibilities. End of the session, that's a 30-minute lesson. We go on to others taking on the role. We have 4 developmental stage 1 lessons before we progress to the more advanced ideas. All students run a stage 1 lesson, time to get on to stage 2. This is where it gets a bit different for them. In an awareness talk for stage 2, check out the awareness, like some things that happen. A reminder of levels 1 and 2. Now these percentages, 80% student, 20% teacher-led, that means in that talk, most of the time, your students should be addressing what these concepts mean, what they look like in the gym or in the PE setting, and a teacher might add a little piece to that. However, in stage 2, it's the teacher's job to introduce self-direction and goal setting. That's 100% of the time teacher talks about, I'm going to give you 4 minutes at the beginning of the lesson to work on some skill that you want to. Everyone had already participated in the sport for 4 class sessions. They should have a pretty good idea of what they want to work on, what they want to get better at, or have other equipment that's outside of that sport realm. And also leadership. Level 4, talk about what that means and what it's going to look like in the lesson. After this talk, again, 20 to 24 minutes of activity. The teachers, if they're running this, they have to integrate levels 1 and 2 into the physical activity about 30% of the time. So 30% of that 20-minute lesson, they are still teaching. They're running some drills, introducing new concepts, something in physical activity is completely teacher-led. However, but 70% of the time, they need to integrate these new responsibilities. Kids working independently, level 3, and I have this term, best students providing leadership roles. So this is hard for PE majors. It's like, okay, for the first 4 minutes, go out and work on something that you want to get better at. What do I do during that time? It's like free time. What am I supposed to be doing? You could go around and ask some questions. What goals are you setting for yourself? What are you working on? It could also be time for that teacher to prepare the next part where students are going to take on leadership roles. So I have this term, best students provide leadership roles. And this whole progression is very similar to what I do with kids. It's just trying to teach the majors how to do this. Best students, what that means to me is that you want to have students in the class take on leadership roles first who have been respectful to each other, who've been trying hard, maybe they just know the content a little better than others, maybe they have good rapport with the rest of the class to set a positive example for what leadership looks like. A student might be assigned a volleyball bumper set. That teacher needs to help a leader understand those concepts and teach it to the class with the teacher's help to make that go on. So it's a little bit different, and it's strange for them at first, but after we get the format going, it works out. In the group meeting, my little system of doing this, if you had leaders running activities, they should talk first. Let them talk first. What was your experience like running those drills? Followed by the rest of the students, and then the teacher talks last. Mistakes that students make, they have their leaders talk the whole time in the group meeting, and they give their feedback. It's like, wait a minute. Other participants were there. They were part of that lesson. Let them share their thoughts about that. They don't need to go in this exact order, but it's sort of trying to give them an idea that this is the criteria for evaluating them. Your leaders need to talk, get the rest of the students to talk, and finally you provide your feedback based on how it had gone in addition to the first 4 responsibilities. And then finally that reflection time, the self-reflection time. We already talked about respect, how respectful you to others, how hard did you try, extending out how well did you work independently. And I try to get them to say something like, during that first 3 minutes, were you working on skills on your own? Did you just see that as free time to mess around? Were you really focused that whole time? And did you provide any leadership roles? So they may have only had 2 peers running a drill or being leaders for that day. So others might have a thumbs down, but that's okay. That's not a bad thing. They just haven't had that opportunity yet. After 4 sessions, 4 class periods of doing developmental stage 2 work, they move on to the final stage. In the awareness talk, the first 2 responsibilities, students should be able to talk about that stuff on their own with a few prompts. Levels 3 and 4, setting goals, working independent leadership. 80% of the student time talk, the teacher might allude to a few more points. However, the main point of these teachers in a developmental stage 3 is making the connection to level 5 outside the gym. They have to have a talk ready to go about what it means to integrate these responsibilities in their students' classroom, on the streets, at home, other areas, and they need to do that in a nice, succinct way. Awareness talks get a little more lengthy in stage 3, but no more than 3 minutes, because too much talking, we need to get on to the activity. Another thing that is difficult for them, providing specific outside and gym examples. In the lesson, this is difficult at first. Integrating levels 1 and 2 in the physical activity only 5% of the time. So if a student is running a lesson, he or she is only teaching 5% of the activities. At this point, those activities need to be passed on to the leaders in the class. More time for self-direction time. And check this out, working independently to ongoing goal setting. What does it mean? What's the difference between just working on your own for a specific amount of time versus setting goals for yourself that might progress throughout the next 5 weeks of the semester? The extension of leadership. Best leaders providing more leadership roles. So rather than having one of your students run a drill, he or she might be running a full practice. And the best leaders mentoring others. So kids who have not, or their peers who have not had opportunity to lead yet, are helping some of the more mentored leaders in this experience pass on that responsibility to have that opportunity. And in the group meeting, a little progression on how this works. Mentor leaders talk, assistant leaders talk, other students talk, and the teacher talks finally at the end how that had gone. Looks like a lot, but it still can happen in about 3 or 4 minutes. And then finally, a reflection time, that individual empowerment is the 4 responsibilities, but adding on at the end, touching on level 5 somehow. How are you transferring these responsibilities to other areas of your life? I often get asked, are your PE students, are they going out and implementing TPSR in their classes? Is this something they're taking and actually doing? And we believe in empowerment for kids. We should be empowering. If we believe that, we should be empowering ourselves. I should be empowering my pre-service teachers. I don't want to indoctrinate them in this approach. This isn't the only way to teach and work with kids. And I think that just builds a better rapport between me and my students. So I let them know you need to know this stuff, understand it, you're being evaluated on it, but it's ultimately up to you if you find a few strategies that work for you, you want to implement in the future, or you want to do full-blown TPSR program. But I do get stories who come back and they're doing this stuff. So, thanks.